Hi, everyone. This is Tom. Welcome to this special call. We're going to do a variety of things here. This is to support everyone being successful at really nailing this program and graduating with honors, which means having a fabulous life. So I've got a PowerPoint with different things in it that we can reference as needed. But the basic agenda is to review the training, freedom practice training, mainly in the form of any questions you may have. There are a few additional things I'm going to say that are not question-based, but it's mainly based on your questions. Frequently, particularly in the beginning, people often have challenges with muscle testing. Like, anybody having any challenges with muscle testing, like not trusting it completely, some stuff like that? No, you're okay? Okay, good. So anyway, if there are a few questions, we'll take care of that. Anything about the techniques. And then one of the main things I wanted to do, some weeks ago, a number of people were saying they were struggling with the out technique. I think Mark Winsky and one or two other people, yeah. And so, yeah, Kimberly. So there are some subtleties to the out technique that sometimes people don't get just right in the beginning, just because, it's natural to have questions about this stuff because we're doing so many things that are the exact opposite of what we've been doing all our life. And so it's not that they're difficult, it's just that they're unfamiliar. And so we try them, and very often some of the conditioning from our lifetime of doing the opposite sneaks in and kind of interferes with the process. So that's why from time to time, it's good to have some discussion and reminders and, things like that. So we'll deal with all those kind of things. And what I was planning on doing is having somebody do an out technique as a demo. And as we go through it, I'm going to talk in detail about each step of the process and how it works and even why we do it. Okay, so you really understand the whole underpinnings of the out technique and how it works. And I think I've done that in the past. I did that once or twice with groups of my Chinese students, and they absolutely loved it. And it worked out really well. Nancy Peters is going to join us too. Great. So these are your colleagues who are in the training, and they're from various parts of the world, mostly in the US, but yeah, I think mostly in the US. Any Canadians here? No. Oh, yeah. Okay, Catherine, that's right. Catherine Elsmer is from Vancouver area. Great. Okay, so I'm just going to open it up to start with any questions that you might have. That's typically the best place to start, is in answering questions. So anyone have anything?
I do.
Great, Kim, go ahead.
So one of the things is that I'm need clarity is on clarity. Because, there's certain things you said, trying not to, bypass, your way around clarity through muscle testing.
Right.
And so I guess what I need to be clear on, I'm not sure, because we'll muscle test, say, for example, is this supplement, this supplement's right for my body, and we muscle test on that.
Right.
But then when it's for things like, well, should I have this conversation? Is it optimal for me to have a conversation with my brother right now? You're saying that that's not something you muscle test on. That's something that you need to have clarity on first.
Right. So the idea is we don't want to make decisions out of emotional reactivity, even if we're unaware that it's emotional reactivity. Okay? And very often when we attempt to make a decision, there's a kind of sense of urgency about making it. And we have a tendency to make impulsive decisions. Those are almost always wrong, okay? They almost always lead to some kind of costly mistake. Now, the reason for this is what muscle testing teaches you or gives you is it just gives you whether you're congruent with something or not, whether you're resonating with something or not. Right? So if you test, I should talk to my brother, and you're resonating with feeling uncomfortable about it, and you're feeling, like there's some possible problems that could occur from it, it's like you're probably gonna you probably get a yes out of some feeling of sort of urgency that you need to talk to him, like you're obligated to talk to him. These are all ego-based thoughts, right? And so you talk to him, you have a terrible time, you hang up, it's a disaster. Okay. So you don't want that to happen. So what you want to do is you want to make decisions from what we could call experiential clarity, where you feel calm, you feel totally fine, you feel like there's no resistance to making the decision. Yeah. And there's no special drive or urgency to making the decision. You can just make it. It's like, okay. So if you have any kind of hesitation or anything like that, my goodness.
Yeah. So you're saying if there's if I'm feeling any type of like a low level emotion around it, then I need to get clarity first.
Right. And there are two ways to get clarity. One is to test, you can muscle test to see if you need to remove any barriers to clarity. Okay. And if you do, then you just use FP and you clear them up. Okay. The other one is sometimes it's just not time to know yet. Okay. Because it's kind of like when you get an intuition from your inner greatness or from the universe or whatever you want to call it, typically this is a it's an intuition-based thought, and it's coming to you almost like an autoresponder from your higher self or something like that. It's like, this is right for you, right? And when you have those kinds of intuitive thoughts, you know it. Like you have this sense of, oh yeah, that feels completely right to me, right? Now, it's a quite different experience than when you have a thought that is ego or emotionally pain-based, okay? If it's emotionally pain-based, there'll be a kind of discomfort to it. There'll be some kind of strangeness to the energy. It'll feel like it's just something's not right. Yeah. And the ego-based thoughts are the trickiest ones. These are the sneakiest ones. They're and that's because we've been used to having all four kinds of thoughts all our life. Yeah. And all of them just seem like, okay, they're just part of my thoughts. They all seem normal. But the ego and emotionally pain-based thoughts are not normal, far from it, okay? These are thoughts that are generated out of the unresolved emotional energy, either in or out technique energy, and they have an emotional charge at their basis. They're thoughts that we're making up that we think are right because the charge is there. Like, let's say it's an out technique energy and there's a cloud of energy all around us. We're seeing through it like having dark glasses on, and it makes it seem real, like it's a real part of our life. And we're so used to living on a planet where everybody makes all kinds of ego-based decisions and has all kinds of ego-based thoughts. It's so prevalent, it's so in our space that we just think it's part of being human, just part of life. But it's not, it's a learned behavior. It's a conditioned response. Right? And it's pretty much for sure that if you take action on an ego-based thought, it's gonna lead to yeah, if you're having trouble hearing Trish, sorry for the interruption, Kim, 1 second. Everybody else can hear okay? Yeah, everybody can hear okay, so it's got to be on your end, Trish. You got some setting or something. Yeah.
So I guess bottom line is for me, I guess, how can I tell what is, like, if I have any type of emotion around it, then I need to do some work.
Yeah, you just check and see. I have some barriers to clarity. Yep. How many? At least one, at least two, at least three. I have two barriers to clarity. I need to know something about them. No, I just need to know what techniques to use. Yeah, there's one in, one out, something else. Then you go for it. And then,
Okay.
then when you're done, you check again. I'm now clear about making a decision about talking with my brother. No. it's time to make that decision. No, there's some new information coming that I need to wait for and until I just naturally feel a sense of clarity. Yes, I'm ready for that now. No. See all the cross checks you can do like that? And it just hones in on it, makes it easier and easier, better and better to do.
Okay.
Okay, so you either clear barriers or you wait. Okay. We used to call this technique WAIT. That, as an acronym, stands for Waiting Accesses Intuitive Truth, which was pretty good.
So could you, okay, so that's the muscle testing, is those types of things, your muscle testing.
You'll,
Okay.
you'll
All
hear
right.
many times that we have just one rule in this work, and that is test everything. Because the beauty of the muscle test is it pulls you out of your mind and into your body. And your body is where you have the experiential knowing. You taste a strawberry, you take a bite, you know what it tastes like. You talk about it for an hour. If you've never tasted one before, you have no idea what it tastes like. So when you have the direct experience of something, this is the foundation of true, what we call experiential knowing. Okay. And when you have the experiential knowing and it's giving you the very clear message, I'm clear about, in fact, you'll just feel it. When you're clear about calling your brother, your clarity may be, no, not to call him. You know? Or it might be, yeah, it feels completely right to call him. I'm going to do it. Yeah. But you got to wait till you have that sort of locked in sense of, yes, this is the right decision, whether it's yes or no. It's like, this feels completely right to me. Now, you can have a sneaky ego-based thought that makes you think you feel it. But you can test for that. This is an ego-based thought. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Okay.
So you'll get better and better and better at being, you see, what we're doing, the whole process we're doing is we're making the unconscious conscious. You know, because that's the way you live in pure awareness all the time, is by having awareness present all the time. And so when you make something that's been an unconscious, why are things unconscious? Because we have so much conditioning, incredible amount of conditioning for our whole life. And the conditioning causes us to live in our ego and emotionally pain-based thoughts because those are at the basis of the conditioning.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Is that helpful?
Yes. Very helpful. Thank you.
Very good. Good question. The clarity technique is basically just to wait.
Yeah. Which I guess your ego gets in the way because it's like, you don't want to wait. You want to do something now.
I mean, you turn on the TV and the Nike commercial says, just do it.
Yeah, right. Which leads to another question is I'm not sure the difference because to me, like the in and out technique, it seems like it's always the in technique for me to do because so I am unclear about the difference of when you use those because it seems like it's always fear. Mostly everything is based on fear coming from that.
Yeah, let me do a little screen share here and pull up that chart of the okay. This is one of the most important charts we have. It's called the types of emotions. And fundamentally, there are two main categories of kinds of emotions if we look at them from the perspective of useful or not useful. Now, that's not good or bad, it's useful or not useful. And so useful thoughts can be energizing and empowering. Things like love, compassion, happiness, joy, and even fear can be useful if it's something that's protecting us from harm, like, you know, some electric car is coming, we don't hear it, and we're about to step out in the street, we see it at the last minute, no, you know, jump back because of the fear. Yeah, that's useful emotion. So this is why we have the distinction useful and not useful, because it's not good or bad, really, it's a better distinction. But the vast majority of emotions that we have are not useful. They're unresolved and not useful. They're disruptive and depleting. And as you can see on the chart, the left side, we have the painful internal ones, which are the in-technique energies. These tend to be localized and very often held somewhere toward the center of the body, like in the solar plexus, kind of like in the drawing here, or in the chest or the belly or the throat, head, could be anywhere, actually. Had somebody the other day, it was in his hands. The whole session was all about his fingers and hands. So when we have a traumatic or emotionally painful experience, and it's just too much for us to process in the moment, then what we do is we store it inside. We archive it someplace, kind of like, I'll get to it later. One tends to not get to it later because of the deep conditioning of suppression and avoidance that we're also unconscious of, because that occurred when we were pre-verbal. And so we have a tendency to automatically suppress and avoid emotionally painful experiences. And we tend to stuff them inside like this. And so these are localized. They have a kind of constriction, usually like a tight knot or ball of energy, but they can also show up as different qualities of energy. Like they can feel like a kind of black hole, which is just kind of like completely empty in a nothing there sense, okay? Which is very different than pure awareness, which is empty, but kind of lively, bristly kind of silence, you know? And then on the right side, we have the out technique energies. And the fundamental distinction between the in-technique and the out-technique energies is the in-technique energies are incomplete experiences where the energy was just too much for us to process at the time. The out-technique energies are quite different. They're new every time we have them. And what they are is they're reactions to some kind of upset or fear as in that big circle. So there are two kind of subsets of these. There's the upset category, which means having an upset over an unmet expectation. We have an expectation, doesn't get met, and then we have our upset reaction, whether it's anger, disappointment, frustration, sadness, depression, et cetera, et cetera. And then on the fear side, we have worry, fear, anxiety, panic attacks, stuff like that. And this comes from projecting possible negative outcomes onto the future. Something bad might happen. So the upsets are something good might happen, and the right side is something bad might happen. So it's all about the future. It's not about now. And with these, in both upset and fear categories, it generates a field of energy that radiates out from the body and just kind of surrounds and engulfs us, just like in the graphic here. And so in the case of the in-technique energies, they're inside of us and they're incomplete experiences. In the case of the out-technique energies, we're inside of the energy field. It's the opposite. And the energy field is a kind of engulfing, surrounding, engulfing kind of quality about it. And the purpose of the out-technique, which we'll go through in quite some detail today, is you're going to take your awareness out beyond the outer edge of the energy field, out into the pure awareness. And so it's a way of extracting you from being kind of lost with being identified with the energy field that you're inside of. Okay? So this is a kind of overview of that difference. Is that helpful?
Yeah, but I guess with that chart, you know, you said the N is, you know, there's trauma, pain. Can you bring that chart up again?
Absolutely.
So, because like, okay, so there's the trauma, the pain, heartbreak, resentment, grief. But then for the out, like, it seems like it could be a fine line between the two to me.
In terms of the language about them, it's a fine line. For example, you could have, say, the fear of uncertainty, a lot of, you know, extremely common. And what that really means is that something happened in the past that was painful and you don't want it to happen again. Right? And it just came out of the blue, like just slammed you out of the blue. Now we use the word fear, but the real energy we go after when we go after it is actually a trauma. It's an old unresolved emotional pain. So don't get attached to the words. Like fear is not going to always be out technique. Sometimes it might be in technique.
Okay. And so how will you, I guess, you're going to show us how we will know if it's an out or in technique?
How are you going to know?
Okay.
Right.
Right.
I was just telling a story to someone the other day that I used to teach how to use an earlier version of the machine that we have. You know, we have the QEO now, this quantum energy optimizer. We used to have a bigger, clunkier, older machine. It's called a BICOM. And I negotiated the distribution rights in Germany. I was importing them into the States and teaching. So one time I was teaching a seminar in San Diego, and people would ask questions that the answer would be, well, you have to muscle test, right? Okay. And they would ask them and I'd say it, and I'd ask them and I'd say it. And I was getting tired of saying it, you know. This is back in, this is like, 20, 21, 22 years ago. Now back then in the United States, I don't know if you had them in Canada, Catherine, but you may remember we had what are called 900 numbers, right? And these were numbers where you'd call up and you'd get like some psychic service and they'd give you 5 minutes of psychic reading and then they'd charge you $5 on your phone bill. Anybody remember that? Yeah, we had 900 numbers. Anyway, so I was getting kind of tired of people asking this question about, and the answer was muscle testing. And so finally I said, okay, everybody, I'm going to set up a 900 number. It's going to be 1-900 muscle test, right? And you call up the number and there's a recorded message. You tell them what you want and it says muscle test and that's $5. So then every time anybody would raise the question, I would just go like this. Anyway, the idea is that muscle testing is of tremendous benefit to us because it pulls us out of the mind and into the body. So out of the thinking about it into our experiential knowing. And that's why we always test. And you'll see, as I'm working today, I'll be testing dozens and dozens of times.
Okay.
So whenever you have the thought, how am I going to know? Then you already know the answer.
Okay, great. That helps. Thank you.
You bet. Yeah. Muscle testing is an incredibly valuable tool. Incredibly valuable. We can find out pretty much anything. And the beauty of it is that the body doesn't lie. The mind lies all the time, but the body doesn't lie. And the mind lies without our even knowing it's lying. Because it is it's a glutton for holding on to ideas that you think are right. Okay, cool. Other questions? This is good. Thanks, Kim.
This is Iris, and talking about muscle testing, what is if I still have trouble trusting it in the way of that I am getting in my head and I'm doubting it, thinking that it is my head that made it up rather than that it was the body.
Many people have this problem sometimes. Yeah, it's very common. And the solution is incredibly simple, thank goodness. So the problem is, it comes from when we're muscle testing someone in person and we have them hold out their arm, we have them say a statement and we wait till they're done and we wait about half a second and we muscle test. Okay? So we get used to thinking that muscle testing timing should be that we test after the statement is finished. But this is leading us actually astray because the statement isn't the intention. The statement is the verbal, linear, intellectual description of the intention, but we know from physics that everything is just vibrating energy, right? So vibrating energy, like when you play a note A on the piano or the guitar or some instrument, the A in the middle range there is 440 cycles per second. That means every second you're getting 440 times the waveform of the note. It's similar with an intention. An intention is a fast moving pattern of energy. Who knows how many times per second it's going, but definitely you know that it's going fast because before you even test, you have this sense that you know what the answer is going to be, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, you go to test and you can feel that it's going to be strong even before you start saying the sentence, right? And that's because the moment that you have an intention to test something, your body starts to respond to the intention's energy pattern, not its description. Okay, so when this happens, it's very simple. You just know that you know, okay? And you just relax into knowing that that feeling you're getting, it's going to be strong. When it's strong, you see, right at that point, what happens is the mind jumps in and it thinks, oh, I'm biasing the answer. I can't trust this. So just know you're not biasing the answer. And just this simple understanding that you're testing the energy pattern, not the description, and that you're going to know before you even start, or certainly before you finish making the statement, you're going to know, you're going to feel what it is, because the muscle starts to respond. You get used to that feeling of the muscle responding, right? Okay. This typically solves 99, 98% of the self-muscle testing problems.
Hmm.
So try that and just relax into being okay with knowing before you think you know.
Okay, and so you basically, when you're doing it this way, it's about the muscle, that is how the muscle responds in the thumb. Is that
The thumb,
correct?
yeah, the thumb is the one that's really the main one contracting. This one we're trying
Right.
to push out against, yeah, there's contractions there too, but the one where you really feel it is in here.
Yeah. And so what I tend to do is I put my awareness just on that finger, because even the way you do it, like with yes or no, where it comes off or not, that is where my brain is like, well, you have to do it consistently, because it's very easy to have it a no, even though it is a yes, if that makes any sense. Again, it's where I'm in my
all
head.
of, yeah, all of that is coming out of thinking that you are testing the statement, not the energy pattern.
Yeah. Okay.
This,
Makes sense.
I tell you, this really solves it. I mean,
All right.
people forget it too, and I have to remind them again.
Right. Okay. 1-800.
No,
1-800.
I don't think they have 900 numbers anymore.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Very good. I knew this question would come up. It always does. Yeah. Okay, great. What else? Anyone having any trouble with any of the techniques other than the out technique? Okay, so everyone I think is familiar with the quietness technique, but I'm just going to review it quickly. Well, let's see where it is easier to find it if I go here. Here we go. So the quietness technique, what I do when I'm teaching people this for the first time is I pretty much always say that there's an analogy that's helpful here. I don't think the screen sharing is on properly. Let's go back. Yeah, let's do this. There we go. Can you see it now? Okay. So what I do when I'm teaching this or showing someone for the first time is that I tell them there's an analogy that's useful, and that is that thoughts occur in the mind like clouds occur in the sky on a partly cloudy day. And when you're looking up at the sky on a partly cloudy day, you can see the clouds, you can see the sky, and it's easy. You just look off to the side of the clouds, and there it is. The sky's there in the background all the time. And so it's like that. The thoughts are occurring in, the the thoughts are occurring in a background of silence. And they come and go, kind of like the clouds blowing by. You get the idea. So you close your eyes, you wait a few moments, and you start to notice your thoughts. Then you look off to the side of the thoughts and you simply notice the silent background in which the thoughts are occurring. So you look off to the side of each thought as it occurs, and the silence that you're experiencing is your awareness. It's the awareness you're using to experience the thoughts. And the qualities of that silence is quiet, obviously, peaceful, expansive, limitless. And there are no problems there, there are no doubts there. That's because you have to have duality in order to have problems or doubts. And in the oneness of pure awareness, there's no duality. So what we want to do is to have this kind of incredible, expansive, peaceful, limitless, wonderful feeling present all the time. And that's what the in and out techniques are for, is removing the stuff that clutters up your inner emotional landscape and makes it not possible to distinguish that quietness. So the thing about the reason we do the quietness technique when we're first teaching people in or out is because when you suppress an emotion, it becomes, and you've suppressed it for years and years and years, it becomes challenging to sometimes allow yourself to feel the energy of the emotion just by thinking about it or talking about it. And so this is why we have the locate technique. So we have a method of being able to go find the energy. But the front end of the locate technique is the quietness technique. And the reason for that is that when you experience pure awareness, your own awareness, again and again and again and again and again, you get several experiences of it. What happens is you're in that state where there are no conflicts and there is no resistance to allowing yourself to feel whatever it is that's going to come up. Okay. So when we do the locate technique, we start with the quietness technique. It's also the start of a couple of the other techniques that we're not using yet, like knowing and wholeness. Yeah, it's the front end of like 3 or 4 of the techniques. Okay. So when we do it, we're purposefully getting the experience of our own awareness, which is that limitless quietness, silence, so that when we tell the body, okay, body, show me the energy, the first priority energy of this anxiety pattern that I have, or whatever the reason we're doing this. And then the body will typically immediately show you. Now, it will happen from time to time that people will say, oh, I don't feel anything. Now, the reason they don't feel anything is because they've been doing this suppressing of their emotions their whole life. And essentially, they've unconsciously been giving the body the signal that, don't ever show me this stuff. I don't want to feel this. It's too painful. I don't like being emotionally overwhelmed. Forget it. Okay? And so when you tell the body, okay, body, show me the energy of blah, 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 it's almost like the body says, huh, are you kidding? You've been telling me your whole life you don't want to feel that. I'm not going to show it to you. So it's like sometimes you have to be a little bit more convincing and say, okay, body, come on. I know I'm going to feel it this time. Go ahead and show it to me. Okay. So you'll occasionally find you have to do that. Those of you I've given sessions to, you've heard me go through that sometimes. Yeah. Okay. So quietness is not necessary to do every time you do in or out technique. This is mostly just in the beginning when someone's just first learning. Okay? And it's to be able to cultivate them being in a state of being where when the body does show the energy, that then they'll actually be able to feel it. And sometimes you even have to tell them, you have to consciously decide that when the body shows you the energy, you're going to allow yourself to feel it. So sometimes you have to play with it a little bit like that too. And when you understand why we're doing it and how we're doing it, then it becomes possible to, make those kind of extra guidance statements when people need them. Okay. All right, good. So in technique, I think everybody's having okay with that. Any challenges with that? Got to turn your mic on, Joan.
Yeah. Well, when we worked that first day, I can sometimes feel that negative energy. Like there's little tiny pieces of it that just think, oh yeah, we're just going to travel back to where they were sitting before. And I just stop and use the quietness and tell it, just no, you don't belong here anymore. You have to leave. You have to go. I mean, obviously not quite so specific, but it's kind of like I stare at it until it decides I'm serious and it's going to walk away and not me walk away. Does that make sense?
Kind of. Let me help to clarify. Okay. Because it may be just in the way you're describing it, but it sounds like you're doing it properly. Okay. You don't need to talk to it and tell it to go away because that's actually not going to work.
Right.
So what we want to do is to, once the body shows it to us, we shift from thinking about it or talking about it to simply just experiencing it. Okay? Because when you understand that the in-technique energies, every one of them is simply an incomplete experience from something that happened in the past, and it happened in a way where it was just too much for us to process at the time. Now, we may have just a little residue left of it, or we may have a lot left, depending on how much energy was there that we couldn't handle at the time. Okay, but the key is the understanding that we're shifting from suppression to completion. Okay? We're shifting from trying to make it go away, and a little bit you're telling it to go away. That thing is kind of a residue of that conditioning to habit, right? So forget about trying to tell it anything or whatever. Just gently notice it, and it will gradually soften and fade away.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Yep. I think it was more the explanation than what I'm actually doing, but yeah.
I think I had that impression that you're actually doing it right. It was just like, again, you've been doing this old way all your life. And so it's embedded in your whole experience and language and everything. So it's completely okay that you would start to describe it, and the description would be influenced by the old lifetime of experience. Totally understandable, in fact. But as far as what you're doing, I think I had the sense that you're doing it right. And from what you say, I think you are. So great. Okay, good. Yes. Trish. You have to unmute. Click the little red icon with the line through it. Not yet. Got to click on the little red microphone icon with the line through it. Lower left corner, typically. While Trish is figuring out her mic, anybody else have a question?
I have a question, Tom. When I'm doing this the in technique, and I thought that I got everything, and then and it feels like I'm fine for a week, but then something will happen, and then there's that emotion that comes forward. So I just wonder if there's something that I can do, an extra step, because I'll even test it and I think, oh, I think I, feel good. And then, so.
It's an excellent question, Kim. And there are multiple answers, actually. In fact, I have a document. It's called the 12 in and out technique tips. And this is for when things are going slowly, where it feels like you just can't seem to resolve it, either like right then or Oh, it's come back, right? Anyway, so I'm going to send that document to our Slack group so everybody can have it.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, and either that or I'll just email it to everybody. We'll see, whatever's simplest. And there are a bunch of things that can happen. Okay, one thing that can happen is you're feeling so much better, okay, that it feels like it's gone, even though it's not gone yet. Okay. So better is good, but gone is optimal. Now, why would we stop before it's actually gone when there's some subtle level of it still there? That's because of the cause of human problems, we call it, of suppression. Okay. We're so used to suppressing the thoughts and not feeling things fully. Okay. We're so used to not completing the experiences that when it gets better, it's like, oh, it's better. That's enough of that. Right. And that can happen. That happens fairly frequently. It's good to know this for clients, and for yourself as well. And so the thing to do is muscle test.
Oh, okay. Go back to the muscle testing.
Muscle test whether it's really gone or not. And if it's not gone, then that's the body telling you, hey, there's still some subtle energy here. Click in closer, do that Google Maps thing, get closer, and you'll feel it. Okay? The basic principle of the N technique, that's the essence of its description, is to feel the essence of the feeling, and that's why we feel the strongest part of it, because that's where the essence of it lives, to feel the essence of the energy of the feeling so thoroughly, so completely, that there's nothing left to feel.
And I think, maybe who know, like you said, maybe it's part of the mind, because there's times where I am working on this and I get bored with it. I'll start thinking about something else and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, where did I go? I was supposed to be working on this.
It is excellent that you're bringing this up, okay? When you have thoughts about it, what's happening is that when the energy gets softer, you're not getting closer again to it quickly enough. Okay? So if the energy gets softer and you don't get closer, you will have a tendency to drift off on thoughts. Okay? So when the energy gets softer during the N technique, immediately get closer. What that'll do is it'll keep you engaged in the sensation because it'll be relatively, strong. Right? And so that'll engage your attention. And when it gets softer, you just get closer right away again. Okay? This will also speed up the whole process. Okay? Now, sometimes it's taking a long time. You mentioned getting, like bored or something. Sometimes it's taking a long time. And it can either be that you're not really keeping your focus right into the center of the strongest part so that the completion process is slow, or more commonly, there's just a lot of energy and it's just going to take a while. I've had to do freedom practice, actually whole sessions on myself 3 times for patients.
Mm.
Yeah, so now I'm
Okay.
a pretty patient guy.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, because I think that I'm, really, I keep moving towards it. It softens, I move towards it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's just stuff that are taking time to move through. And
one of the reasons for having a call like this, and we'll have more of them if we need them, right, is because we're going up against a lifetime of conditioning of doing the opposite of what we're doing during these techniques. And so it's totally understandable and reasonable that we would have a tendency to slip back into some aspect of that conditioning, particularly if we don't have some contact with, some guidance for a while, and you're just kind of going along. And the conditioning is powerful. You don't think it's powerful? Go visit your parents for a weekend.
yeah. Oh yeah, it's they say 90% what we do is based upon subconscious.
Well, most people live their lives as the product of their conditioning.
Yeah,
And
sure.
so there's not a lot of access to who you really are, to your wholeness, to your inner greatness, not a lot. And so to have finally a systematic methodology for being able to remove all that mind clutter stuff that gets in the way and start to be able to act more and more and more from your intuition, this is a really good thing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Which brings us to one of the other topics I wanted to discuss. I recently sent a bunch of you your Decision Influences Assessment, DIA. Does anyone not get one? Iris, oh, Nancy, I'm sure I sent them, but I'll resend right away today, okay? In fact, Trish, okay. So anybody who didn't get one, drop me a quick email at tomstonehsc@gmail.com. Just tell me you didn't get it. I'll send it to you later today after we're done. Okay. So I wanted to talk a little bit about them, and I do have one on the, I can do on the screen share just so we can get a sense of it.
Tom, can I say something to what Kim just said?
Please.
Because my question also comes up is, I mean, obviously life still happens, right? And we have been conditioned to always push the feelings away and not feeling things fully. So, I mean, it's one thing to clear up things from the past, but then at the same time, it's about in the present not to accumulate more of that energy, right?
That's exactly right. And the beauty of the freedom practice is that you become more and more conscious of your conditioned reactions. And you realize more and more that they're either ego-based or emotionally pain-based. And when you do that and you catch it right in the moment, and then you immediately do the technique, then you don't accumulate.
Yeah, yeah.
And in fact, that's one of the other points that I have that I wanted to discuss with you about the freedom practice is there are actually 3 different phases of it. The first phase is the one you do in the morning for 20 or 30 minutes. You go into the quietness, you have thoughts, you start muscle testing what kind of thoughts there are. And when they're ego or emotionally pain-based, you stop, find the energy, take care of it. Okay? That's phase 1. Now, when you do that for a while, and some of you have been doing that for just about the right amount of time now, what happens is you start to become more conscious of what ego and emotionally pain-based thoughts are like. And so you start to recognize during the day, oh, that might be an ego-based thought. So naturally you, Kim, muscle test. Just a reminder, just being playful. So you muscle test, and sure enough, it's an ego-based thought. So you stop what you're doing, you use locate, you go find the energy, you determine what kind of energy it is, whether it's in or out technique energy. And by the way, sometimes there's multiples of both. Sometimes not just one energy. You have in and out, and you can have more than one of in and out. So muscle test for what's there, then you go find the energies using locate, you resolve them using in or out or both, whatever you need, and you keep at it until that's gone. Now in the beginning, that'll take you a little bit just because you're still in your learning curve, but you'll get really quick at doing this. Yes, Joan.
My question is, are we supposed to kind of prioritize those? Because I'm getting an awful lot with what's going on personally, and I'm dealing pretty well with my internal, the in ones. But what I catch myself is the external ones, the outs.
Yeah.
I have to really concentrate and remember
What to do.
What to do and to look at the sky and to know that's my sky, that's not my cloud. It belongs to someone else, but it's still a cloud that I have to live in conjunction with.
No, it's not like that.
Okay, so I missed it somewhere.
Oh, yeah. We're going to do this very thorough review of that technique just a little bit. So we'll cover all of that then. Yeah, good. Okay, good. So, Iris, I was answering your question. Did I get that?
Yes, thank you. And I assume also, how is it when the more we are conscious and the more we recognize, all right, I'm impatient now. And, you know, in that moment, right, is this the right way of investing my life energy and even asking these questions and being aware? I assume that is also a way of processing the energy and just realizing or not being caught in it, but actually being in a relationship with it.
Yes, that's exactly right, because we have a lifetime of not bothering to make a distinction between what kind of thoughts we're having. Okay? We don't do that.
Mm.
Nobody does that. They just have all these 4 kinds of thoughts all the time. They're used to it. They all seem like they're just part of thinking. Okay? But now, when you start doing the freedom practice and you take some time in the morning and you're actually allowing yourself to make the distinction using muscle testing, increasingly you start to get the sense during the day of what kind of thought you're having. And then, of course, you can muscle test to see that it is, in fact, what you're intuiting, you think it is. Okay? Now, as you do that and you get more and more used to it, as I was saying, at first it's kind of takes a little time because you're in your learning curve and you're just getting used to doing that. But what happens quite rapidly is that you start to just get good at it and you can do it fairly quickly. How many of you are already in that stage where you're doing it fairly quickly? Yeah, several. Yeah. So it'll get faster and faster. I mean, I've got clients who I've had for years, and I get them on. I'm just doing like texting with them back and forth, and they bring up, they say, "Oh, I got this issue with such and such." I say, "Oh, you got 3 ins and 2 outs for that." And they say, "Okay, give me a minute." Okay, what's next? It's like it's whoosh, like super fast. It's amazing. You'll get like that. You'll get so that it's just so easy. And in fact, eventually you'll get where you recognize an ego or emotionally pain-based thought, and you don't even have to do a technique on it because you've done so many of them that just the recognition allows you to just let it go. And that's kind of what you were talking about, Joan, but it's like a more advanced stage where it's really just recognizing it and being able to let it go energetically. Okay. Yeah. Okay. All good? All right. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the DIA, the Decision Influences Assessment, because this is a wonderful tool. And I'll tell you how it came into being. It was just about 3.5 years ago that I created it. And this was in order to be able to see the progress of people who were in a presenter training program I was giving in China. China's a big country, and I've given seminars in numerous cities in China. And I can only be in one city at a time, of course. And so, a couple weekends a month was usually sufficient for me as far as volume of teaching per month. But I wanted my trainings to be available everywhere in China, like every month. And so I announced a presenter training program. By that point, I had quite a lot of some hundreds of students, many of whom were pretty advanced. So 50 people signed up for the training, and about 35 of them stuck with it and really, really got it. And what I wanted was, I wanted to not have to, go around and kind of certify these people by sitting in their seminar for a weekend or even a few hours and watching them teach. I didn't want to have to do that. I wanted them to be so good. I wanted them to be living examples of what they were talking about. And I also wanted them to be able to respond spontaneously to the needs of the specific people in that audience from their wholeness, okay, from their inner greatness. And I wanted the people in the audience to have the feeling of, I don't know what this person's got, but whatever it is, I want some of it. Okay. And so the purpose of the freedom practice was to, as rapidly as possible, clean out the inner emotional landscape so that the energy is so clean that the ego and emotionally pain-based numbers go way down, the intuitive and practical numbers go way up. And even before they get to absolutely optimal, okay, they still are so much better than the average person that the experience of people listening to them would be, I don't know what they just said, but whatever it is, that's for me. I want that. Okay. So it's an experiential thing. Part of this also came out of something, it's an understanding about a process called the tragedy of knowledge. Some of you heard me speak about that before, but I'll explain to you because most of you haven't. Tragedy of knowledge means that, every great tradition of knowledge that we have, like the religions and the philosophies and different things like that, religions for sure have kind of degraded into mostly being just codes of behavior. Do this, don't do that, blah, blah, blah. And the sort of essence of the real spiritual message that they originally had, maybe thousands of years ago, has kind of been lost over time. When kids are, I don't know if you had this when you were a kid, but when kids are at a birthday party and they're playing games, one of the games is this game where you whisper something to the person next to you, they whisper it to the person next to them, and they whisper it to the person next to them, and then you remember this. Anyway, by the time the whisper gets back to the original person, the birthday person, has nothing to do with the original message. And so something very much like that has happened in all of the great traditions of knowledge in the world. Okay, they've degraded into a real shadow of what they originally were. Well, I don't want that to happen to this work, because this work is so precious and it's so effective. We want to keep it in its purity and power for absolutely as long as possible. So part of my motivation with these people is to avoid what has happened that's caused the tragedy of knowledge. Because tragedy of knowledge is caused because you got some wise teacher who teaches from their level of consciousness. Okay? Well, the student is not at the same level of consciousness. Otherwise, they wouldn't be bothering to learn from this person. Okay? So the students down here, teachers up here. So the teacher says something and the student misinterprets it. Okay? Because they're not hearing it in the same way that it's intended to be being taken. Okay, so what happens is the teacher says something like, when you're in pure awareness, there are no desires. And what the student hears is, oh, I got to get rid of my desires to get into pure awareness. Now, the teacher didn't say, get rid of your desires to get into pure awareness. He said, when you're in pure awareness, there are no desires, right? It's like, he didn't, not how to get there. It's just an attribute of being in this state. Okay? But the student misinterpreting, they go renounce everything and, get in their cave with their loincloth and their copy of the Bhagavad Gita or whatever. They didn't get it, right? Now, when they teach their students, it's like the whisper around the table. It gets lost more and more and more and more and more and more. So is there some kind of way to prevent this? Historically, there has not been, with some unusual exceptions. But the way to keep this from happening is, if the teacher is teaching from this level of consciousness and the students listening from here, the way to solve this problem is to bring the students' consciousness up to here or even here. That way, whatever they say, it's going to be coming from a clean inner emotional landscape. It's going to be coming directly as an intuitive thought, right? Responding to the needs of the moment, not as a conditioned response that they haven't resolved yet. Right? So this is the potential, at least, to be able to prevent or minimize or keep the purity of the teaching, if we could call it that, for as long as possible. And so this was also part of the motivation for creating the freedom practice and the decision influences assessment, because now we have a way to quantify where a person is in terms of how cluttered their inner emotional landscape is or how clean it is. Now, I've got some students in China who've been doing this now for like 3 years. And even for a year or two back, they had already reached a point where practical and intuitive thoughts are at 100%, ego and emotionally pain-based thoughts are at 0. And their lives are amazing, utterly amazing. So definitely worth the investment of your time and energy and getting this whole freedom practice thing integrated into your life. Okay? so that you can get a cleaner and cleaner and cleaner inner emotional landscape and be functioning more and more and more from pure awareness. Now, there are people on this call who've been doing this work for a long time. And yet, when I did your DIA, it was better than most beginners for sure, but there was still lots of ego and emotionally pain-based thoughts because we're so used to having them, we just haven't been aware that there's something we can actually do about it. And now there is. And so this is an incredibly precious thing for the development of your own life, but also something superb for perpetuating the purity and effectiveness and value of our teaching all these people in the world to do it. I have a friend who's a Vedic astrologer, and he tells me that the reason I'm here is to help millions of people. So I'm going to need a lot of help. Okay, so that's the DIA. And what we're going to do is periodically we'll redo it. We'll redo it. Maybe every 2 or 3 months we'll redo it. In this training program, I had scheduled that we would do it after each of the 2-month segments. So we'll at least do that. And that way we get a update and you can kind of see how you're doing. I'm also going to be using this in my companies, and I'm going to actually pay people to do the freedom practice every morning for the first half hour of their job. I'm going to pay them for that. Pay them to develop their emotional competence, and we'll use the DIA as the management tool. If it's not changing, then they're playing with their iPhone instead of doing the techniques. We'll be able to tell. Yeah. Okay, so your DIA is your management tool, your scorecard, your reality check on how you're doing. Now, don't be surprised if it takes a while to make major changes in it, because the size of the databases of in and out technique energies that you have accumulated is substantial. It is for everyone. So it's going to take time to chisel away at the backlog. So just go at the fastest rate you can go and be thorough about it. And you're going to be, I mean, it is amazing the kinds of experiences that my Chinese students have been having. I was seeing the beauty of it, integrating the techniques into your daily life, is that your speed goes way up in terms of progress. Yeah. I was seeing experiences in 1 or 2 months from this first group of presentation students that I typically didn't see for 1 or 2 years with just doing the old procedure where we just did a 9-step protocol and did a whole session on yourself and do that once or twice a week. Now this is like a super accelerator of people's progress. So you'll find that. You'll find your intuition will be going up and up and up, better than it's ever been. Okay, good. Any questions about DIA? So I think what I'd like to do next is to do this out technique demo with a detailed explanation of each stage of it. Who would like to be the demo person? Okay, so Kim got her hand up first, so she's the optimal, but yeah, so she's the optimal person.
They don't call me quick for nothing. Got to put that in there.
I like it. Well, they don't call me Stone for nothing. When I was a musician, I used to call it Tom's Tone.
That's a good one.
Fun to play with the names, that's for sure. All right, so what we need in order to do the demo is something to do an out technique on. And of course, out techniques are very common for handling upsets from unmet expectations or projections of possible negative outcomes onto the future. And everybody's got plenty of both of those. So if you just think about it for a moment,
See, unmet expectation. Okay, I'll say my business isn't being as successful as I'd like it to be.
okay, this is an optimal topic for this demo. Yes, okay. Okay, so one of the principles that you're going to learn as we move into the working with other people, and it's actually good to learn this just for working with yourself, is that there's a very common need to separate the circumstances from the reaction, or the reaction from the circumstances. Now, in every situation that we experience in life, we have both the circumstances and the reaction. Okay, so just common that we have both. And for most people, they're so kind of intertwined that they feel like they're just one thing. But it turns out that they are separate things, and we can separate them. And so I'm just going to see if I can set this up for, that's all right, we'll leave it like this. So the first thing we want to do is to separate the reaction from the circumstances. And your reaction is what? Disappointment, frustration, fear.
Yeah, all those.
Of the different feelings that you're having about your business not being as you'd like it to be yet, which one is the most predominant?
I'll go with frustration.
Okay. So this is the optimal energy to do this Art Technique demo on. Yes. Okay. So we need to state an intention statement for this session. Yeah. So if it could be just how you'd like it to be, what would the new picture look like?
That, I was making a desired income that I would like on a monthly basis, and that it was fun and easy.
Okay. So you want this obviously to be at least the desired level, and you want it to be consistently at least at the desired level, right?
Yes,
Okay. I want to make sure the intention is clear.
that's true.
Okay, so this intention is optimal for this particular topic. Yes, it is. Okay, good. So just say the intention again the way you'd like to have it be, including those points that I made, and then I'll test whether you're congruent with it or not.
Should I say the amount of money I want to make?
You can if
That's
you like.
important.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
it's not critical, but you can do either that or keep it to yourself, whichever way you like.
Oh, okay. It doesn't. Okay. So my intention is to have the.
Actually, Kim, say it as if it's already like the way you want it.
Okay. My business is making the consistent desired income on a monthly basis with ease and fun.
Or more. Consistent monthly.
Or more.
Or more, yeah. We don't want to limit the universe's kindness to you.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, good. Okay, so now I'm also testing your statement, and you're not fully resonating with you. That's why you're not standing in that reality yet.
Okay.
You know, this concept of the multiverse, right? They have all these parallel realities, right? All existing. And actually, what the pure awareness techniques are is they're like keys to the doorway to shift from one reality to the next. So you can step into that new reality where it's like what you just said, rather than staying stuck in the one where it's not like that. Okay. And we do that by removing whatever barriers there are that are in the way of the door so we can get in there.
So I want to just jump in for a second to learn this, is that you could create these, kind of like intentions, right? And muscle test if you're resonating with the intentions.
That's
That's
exactly right. Yes. And that's what I just did. This is what you're going to learn when you learn to work with other people. Okay. We're focusing initially on just getting good at doing the techniques and catching them during the day and integrating this into your life as a kind of ongoing process. But then when we start on the learning how to work with clients, then you're going to learn exactly that. There's a 9-step protocol. Step 1 is we check actually with what's called the where to start chart to make sure that we're using the right modality for the purpose of the millions of times a day. People go to some practitioner for something and they go down that path and it's not the right path because the solution's on some other level. Yeah, you go to an herbal medicine person with depression, they give you St. John's wort, you feel better until you stop taking it. Right? Okay. So that's because the problem isn't on the chemical level, the problem is on the awareness level. It needs to be solved there. Then it's really solved. Right. So in our work, we're into really solving things, not just putting band-aids on them. Yeah. Yeah, so you'll learn all about how to do that, and your intuition about what to do, make the intention, muscle test whether you're congruent with it or not. Absolutely right on. That's just what we just did. Good. So now, because you're not fully resonating with it, we're going to test to see how many barriers there are keeping you from this. And it's 1, 2. It's only 1.
Yay.
That's cool. Okay. And it's valuable for us to figure out what that 1 is. Yes, it's essential. No. So I'm going to show you something else that you're going to be learning. And it's called the 12 causes of human problems. And Catherine, you know this as the core dynamics, 12 core dynamics. Changed the name a little bit for translation purposes in China. So it's the 12 causes of human problems. And we're just going to test from there. And I'm just going to bring that up so you can see it. You're going to be learning all about this, but I'm just going to bring it up if I can. If I can do it easily. Here we go. That's, oh, wait a minute, let's try it this way. Charts and models in English, here we go. 12 causes of human problems. Yeah, so.
Tom, we're seeing a different screen. We're seeing your email, not the
Oh, okay. Even now?
correct.
Thank you so much. We'll fix that. How about now?
Yes.
Okay now? Okay, good.
Thank you.
So yeah, thank you. So this is a model of a set of answers to the question, what are the deepest causes of problems in human life? And it took me years of very dedicated exploration to get these insights. And you'll notice there are 3 central ones. And these are associated with, actually, I'm not going to go into great depth explaining the model. I'm just going to use it for the moment to test. So this 1 out technique energy that we're looking for, the cause of the less than optimal income from the business for Kim, is on the right-hand side, no, on the left-hand side. Yes, it's an attachment to something, and it's one of those 3 expressions of that off to the left. Yes. The one called expectations and reactions. Well, this is perfect. Okay. Expectations and reactions. So what we're going to do is stop the screen share, come back to Kim. Yes. So you have an expectation of things being better, and the expectation is not met, and you have the reaction of frustration. So the first thing we're going to do is to clear up the frustration. And this frustration, because it's a reaction to an unmet expectation, is very common for these to be out technique energies. Okay? Sometimes when they're really deeply intense, there's some in technique energy there, and that needs to be cleared first, or, sorry. Sorry. There's sometimes an in technique energy that needs to be cleared first. And sometimes when you do that, the out technique energy just goes away, just as a consequence of it, because the in technique energy was kind of the foundation of it. But in your case, in this case, that's so? No. In this case, you have one out technique energy. Yes, more than one, just one. Okay, cool. This is perfect for the demos. You know, I always, when I'm giving seminars or trainings with this work, and there's a need for a demonstration person and several people volunteer, I let the muscle testing guide the decision, because I have the intention that the optimal person is going to be chosen by virtue of muscle testing. And so we have that in this case. Good. So the, and Trish, I know you were wanting to volunteer as well, but you can follow along with whatever your issue is. In fact, everybody can follow along who would like to do that as we do this for Kim. Okay, and even though her last name is Quick, I'm not gonna go quick. I'm gonna go nice and gradual and slow, and make sure that we cover everything deeply. So the if we were doing this with the full protocol of having learned already how to work with clients, we would test from the where to start chart to make sure that you can, that this is the optimal level at which to approach the problem. Yeah, it is. Okay, so there's one out technique energy, and we need to know more about it. Yeah, it's this frustration as a reaction to an unmet expectation. Now, why do we make expectations? In the Freedom from Illusions training with the learning the basics of the freedom practice, you may recall that in lesson 4, we deal with the fear of uncertainty. Use the techniques to resolve the energy at the basis of the fear of uncertainty. That one is typically one of these in technique energies of some trauma that happened way back that came out of the blue and blindsided you, and you got clobbered by it, and you don't want that to happen again. And so uncertainty gets a bad rap of being kind of like the place where that bad stuff happens. And so there's this tendency to, we call it fear of uncertainty, but it's actually a fear of the traumatic experience that happened in the uncertain environment. And in your case, this is the case. No, this is not that way. This is an out technique energy, which is the more common, lesser intense version of the reaction to the unmet expectation. Okay. So the reason we create expectations is actually in an attempt to mitigate the uncertainty. And it's a kind of unfortunate circumstance that we grow up in an environment where everybody does this. We just learn it because everybody's doing it around us. Okay? Because when you create an expectation, it can't happen. And the reason it can't happen is because the only place it exists is in your mind. You're making up the story of what you think you want. Now, the universe always has a better plan for us than our ego has. So the thought that it should be a certain way is an ego-based thought. Now, that doesn't mean that it can't be that way, okay? But you're not going to get there from having an expectation, yeah? And you've experienced it many times. You create an expectation, doesn't get met, there you are. Okay. So when we clear the energy of the frustration, that will at least bring us back into more or less a clean presence, clean awareness that we're here, we're present, let's see what's possible. Okay? You're not going to manifest extra money out of the frustration energy. Not going to happen. Okay.
I have
Yeah.
a question.
Yeah.
What's the difference between an expectation and an intention?
Yeah. Intentions are typically intuitive, whereas expectations are things we make up in our mind.
Okay, but it's not wrong. I mean, in thinking in Kim's case, like, what's the difference when she has an intention that she wants her business to have an income, that
Right.
makes her feel comfortable and
Yeah.
happy,
Yeah.
and then an expectation.
Yeah, the expectation part is a kind of overlay on the intention. Having an intention to make a good living doing something you like to do, which is basically what her intention, it's articulated in a little bit different way than that, but that's basically what it is. That's a kind of just natural expression of her inner greatness. She just wants to be doing something she loves, helping people and making a good living doing that. Okay? There's no, actually, one of the reasons I told her to put and more is I didn't want her to set a specific number, because the moment you set a specific number, you're actually shifting the intention into becoming an expectation. I don't know about you, but when I have what I call rememberings of the future, when I have intuitive thoughts, they don't come with this. They don't come with a calendar, and they don't come with a bank account balance. We talked about that the other day. Yeah, and so the part of the way to prevent having the intention slip over into becoming an expectation, which is quite common, by the way. People that have an intuition, and then the mind will jump in and layer some quantification on it, right? It'll put a time frame on it. It'll put a quantity or an amount on it, like an income amount or something like that. And so to leave those up to the universe or the laws of nature is much better, because you didn't get that as part of the intention. And it was true in the beginning when she was trying to formulate her intention, she was attempting to basically just say, I want to make a really good living doing what I love to do. I mean, that's basically what she wants.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the quantifying part of it is actually coming from the mind. Does that make sense?
Yeah, if I would translate it into the way that I think, it'd be like an intention, is the more general what you would like a wish, an imagination of how things could be, whereas like an expectation is exactly what that's going to look like and when.
When and how much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the quantifying of it. That's pretty good. Although I would say intention is a little different. If we think of the word imagining, it could work in both directions. It could either be for an intention or an expectation, but I tend to leave it more on the expectation side. If you're imagining it, that's more like you're making it up, right? Whereas if it's an intuition, the intuition just kind of comes to you. You're not making it up. It's like you're perceiving it rather than making it up. Does that distinction make sense?
Somewhat. It does. Still, I mean, I'd have to think about it to come up with the more clear picture, because I mean, yeah, I mean, it'd be something to think about, because I mean, if you should
let me
come
help,
up. Yeah, go ahead.
let me help you out. At this stage of your development, okay, with your DIA scores, and I've been working with you enough, I know what's going on with you. Okay, your your lack of clarity of this particular topic is coming out of the state of being that you're in, where you have still so many ego and emotionally pain-based thoughts and the energies underneath those, that to make the distinction between intention and expectation is difficult. It requires a kind of level of experiential clarity to be able to make that distinction that you're not yet there. So it's more of a state of being thing than a thinking about it. In fact, any thinking about it is going to make it more and more in the direction of being quantified. So don't worry about it. The clarity on this distinction will come, and the ability to formulate clear intentions is actually one of the most central and important skills of doing this work, right? And you'll get it. But be patient with the process. There's a learning curve here, and its most important characteristic is the cleanup of the inner emotional landscape. So you're right on target. Okay.
So in a way that just came to mind is an intention is more an intuitive led picture of what well you phrase it as remembering the future sometimes,
Yeah.
whereas an expectation is more of like building a picture of what you want based on ego-based or emotional-based thoughts.
That's a very good distinction. That's very good. That's exactly right. And so Kim's intention doesn't have ego or emotionally pain-based thoughts in it, okay? But this frustration is the expression of having had some ego-based thought. And her ego-based thought is not just, I want more income. It's that, damn it, I want more income. It's right. It's like this. Yeah, I'm sure. That's right.
Yeah.
Question about that, if that's okay. I'm sorry, Kim.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. It's fine to have discussion. That's what these calls are about. So go ahead.
So if you realize that what you had stated as your intention, or is it actually what you want, and you just kind of back away and say, oh, no, that wasn't it. We got to rethink or go back and listen to what my soul or heart or however you want to word it is actually yearning for. That's not a failure. That's listening to the better side of your brain.
Your question is coming out of a state of being similar to Thomas's question.
Okay, gotcha.
And that is that in order to be able to formulate a clear intention and make the distinction between intention and expectation, you need a clean enough inner emotional landscape that that's even possible.
Gotcha. Not there. Got it. Not a problem.
Yeah. So your attempt to describe how to do it is going to be cluttered with all the conditioning that's still present. So don't worry about it. It's like allow for the process of the learning curve to be there so that you can increasingly come more and more from the intuitive side and less from the conditioned side.
To stick with every student is an individual. My progress is mine. Kim's is Kim's, and Tim's is Tim's.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Very good. Okay, good. So we want to now do the out technique on this frustration energy. When you just think about this topic, Kim, can you feel the frustration?
Yeah.
Yeah, now notice that this kind of emotion has this aura or cloud-like energy field to it, where the energy radiates out from the body, kind of fills up the space all around you and kind of engulfs you. Can you feel that?
Uh-huh.
Good. So the first step of the out technique energy, or out technique process, is you have to have the person be able to feel the energy of the emotion as this kind of cloud-like, aura-like energy. Now, sometimes the first time you tell a person to look for it, they don't feel it as readily as Kim did. Kim got it like, right? It's like in her face, so she's got it, okay? But it's common that first time person tries this, particularly very first time, like with a new client. This is again, we have many things that we guide our clients to do that are the exact opposite of what they've been doing all their life. Okay. For most people, they're just absorbed in their reaction and they don't realize they're in the reaction. Okay? So we're educating them as we're going. Okay? So what you have to do sometimes is to use the locate technique to get access to the energy field, because it's so well suppressed, even though it's, you know, an out technique that should be obvious, but sometimes it's not so obvious to people because they're not used to doing this. Okay, but Kim's got it. So I'm going to fill in the blanks of things that can happen that don't happen with Kim, just so you know, because that's our purpose here, is to do a very thorough review of the out technique. Okay, so Kim, go ahead and close your eyes. And once the person can feel the energy, all you have to do is say to them that the instruction is very simple. All you do is go see how big it is. And the way you do that is you let your awareness move out into the space around you through the energy field until you come to the outer edge of it, where the energy fades off into the surrounding quietness. We're interested in getting to that quietness. So when you do, Kim, let me know.
Okay.
Okay, so now that you've accessed the quietness, the next step is to go a little bit deeper into the quietness, a little further away from the edge of the energy field. And the way you do that is you just allow yourself to notice the area of the quietness that's a little bit further away. The purpose of doing this is to get the distinction between the quietness and the energy even more clear. So I always do this when the person first accesses the quietness outside the energy field. And it's typically pretty easy to do. Got it already? Yeah,
Mhm.
easy. Okay. Now the next step is to go much, much deeper into the quietness, quite far away from the energy field.
Okay.
And take a few moments to notice how vast and limitless the quietness is. Yeah, there's no end to it. It just goes on and on forever. Nice place to hang out.
Yes.
And notice how there's no frustration out here, right?
Right.
Yeah. In fact, it sounds ridiculous. Great. Okay, so now if you look back at the energy cloud that you were inside of just moments ago, what's happening to it? And when you're doing this,
It's
go ahead.
it's lessened.
It's lessened, right? Does it have the feeling it's kind of like shrinking and fading away?
Yes.
Exactly. Perfect. This is perfect. Now, why is it that that happens? I'll explain it to you like this. When you're inside the cloud of energy, it's kind of like having dark glasses on. And you're looking through the coloration and it's tinting everything, giving it this quality of, in this case, frustration. Now, when you go outside the energy field, the reason we go outside the energy field is at the moment you go out of the energy field into the quietness that's surrounding, that quietness is your awareness. And your awareness is the essential nature of what you are. It's that which you use to experience everything. It is the essence of you. Okay? When you're inside the energy cloud, this is literally clouded, right? You can't see it because of the tinting quality of whatever the characteristic of the energy cloud is. Okay, you just feel the energy of the frustration. And because there's a significant charge to that, that's a stronger experiential phenomena than the quietness. The quietness doesn't have any charge, right? So the coloration, if you will, or the tinting of your seeming reality is coming from the reaction and the energy cloud that's making. It's interesting to note that the energy cloud is actually the mechanism of identification. It's what causes you to feel identified with that seems like it's part of your reality. Right? So it's fascinating understanding that we now understand what the mechanism of identification really is. Okay, so once you get outside the energy field, the illusion that the frustration is real can't maintain the integrity of seeming real anymore in the face of the direct experience of your essential nature as pure awareness. And so it can't keep it up, so to speak. It starts to fade away. Yeah? It can't keep the illusion of seeming real in place. And so it just naturally starts to fade. Now, as it fades, you're out in pure awareness, looking back at it, and you're in this vast, expansive, peaceful, calm state. And now your whole perception of the situation has you have a whole new take on it. You can see it clearly now. And what you can see clearly is you've had a story running, things should be different, and it upsets me that they're not, right? And that story is so clear and obvious, you can see it now. When you were inside the cloud of energy, you couldn't see it. In fact, that made it seem like the story you were telling yourself is real. But now you can see that you have been, in fact, running a story kind of in the background, and that story has been generating this cloud of energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what we want to do now is we want to make sure that the energy gets completely gone, and we want it to not come back. And so what we do is we challenge the usefulness, the value, the nature of the story to see if there's actually any good reason to continue to allow it to be in your awareness. So first thing we do is we challenge whether running the story is getting you what you want.
No.
Okay. Is it giving you the life that you want?
No.
Is it a good use of your life energy to let this story run there and have this reaction?
No.
And last question is, do you feel more a sense of choice or empowerment of whether you allow this story to run in your awareness or not?
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. Because now you can see it clearly. You can see what you've been doing. Now, remember, I've said, and you'll hear me say it hundreds of times, what we're about is making the unconscious conscious. So what you've been doing is you've been running the story and not conscious that you were running it. Not conscious enough. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So now you're conscious enough of it that it's like the lights are turned on. They're not going to go off. Okay. So all you have to do is simply make the decision that you're not going to allow this story to be in your awareness anymore. You recognize that basically you've had an unconscious bad habit. Okay? So when you decide you're done with it, you're not going to let it come into your awareness anymore, okay? Then the remaining energy and the story both collapse back into the nothingness out of which you created them in the first place. The moment you decide that, you'll notice that the energy's gone. Yeah?
Um,
Now, the circumstances are still there.
yeah.
That's a different matter, okay? We're talking about the reaction.
Okay. Yeah.
So just sort of scan yourself and see if there's still any frustration left.
Just a little bit.
Okay, when this happens and you're doing our technique guiding someone or even yourself, it means that the thoroughness of your decision to unplug the power cord, should this story rear its ugly head out of nothingness, isn't complete enough. So you want to review those challenging questions again. Is there any reason at all to allow this story to continue to be in your awareness? You certainly have a habit of running it, that's for sure. You've had a habit. But now that you know that it's not getting you what you want, it's draining your life energy, it's actually not useful, it's actually damaging.
Yeah. Yes.
It's certainly not increasing your income.
No. No, so it's just letting the story go.
Exactly. When it's thoroughly gone, there won't be any feeling of frustration. You'll still have the desire to have more income, but that's different than feeling frustrated about it.
Yeah.
You get that?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Well, there's which I have learned, your attachment.
Yeah, attachment is exactly what we're dealing with here.
Yeah. And I mean, there could be different reasons why there's attachment.
Let's check
Yeah.
let's check and see, because sometimes when you've accomplished something like what we've done so far, it will kind of uncover that there's something else there. And you're kind of getting the intuition that's happening. I am too. And in fact, it is. So in addition to frustration, there's some other quality that causes you some discomfort regarding this topic.
Yeah. I'm not sure what it exactly is, though.
Well, while you think about it for a second, I'm just going to put my video on hold here for a moment. Back. Okay. So there's a distinction between having a desire for a better income, more consistent, better income. There's a distinction between having the desire for that and having an attachment to it being that way.
Yeah, because there's something around, actually, from doing, really working on this work on a daily basis. Last night, when I woke up, I had this thought of, I'm attached, that I'm not good enough if I'm not making a certain amount of money.
Right, right. And that's called being judgmental of yourself. Right?
Yeah, and something I probably made up as a kid, that I'm not good enough if I'm not making a certain amount of money.
Exactly. Okay. So this is an additional Our Technique energy that's been kind of hiding in the background behind the other one. Yeah. This is a self-worth one, huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Be nice to get rid of this one too, huh?
Yeah, it would be really great.
Well, now you know how to do the Out Technique really well. Let's do it.
Okay.
So go ahead and close your eyes. Think about the whole self-worth thing and notice that it has one of these energy clouds to it. Has a different quality to it, but it's the same structure. This is in technique energy? No, this is out technique energy. Yeah, I'm just double checking. It's out technique energy. If you're having any trouble finding it, you can use the locate technique. Just go into
Okay.
the quietness. This is great. We're getting to demonstrate both ways of finding the energy. So go ahead and look off to the side of your thoughts. Notice the quietness in the background. And do that a few times so you get a real taste of it. You've just been there. You were way out in the quietness, so it's easy to get at now. This is sufficient access to the quietness. Okay, now tell the body to show you this energy of the feeling of low self-worth if you're not making enough money.
I'm feeling it inside. I think that's,
Okay, sometimes when you feel it inside, this is in technique energy? No, sometimes that's kind of like the fountainhead or origin point of the out technique energy. And if you allow yourself to notice it, you'll notice that there is something that sort of radiates out from that point into the space around you.
okay.
You sense that?
Okay, I
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah, good, good. That's a good point, by the way, for everybody about the out technique energies. Sometimes the origin point of the out technique energy can feel sort of like an in technique energy field. And so again, the muscle testing, thank God for it, is what saves us. Huh? If we test, as I just did a couple of times, that this is actually out technique energy, the moment I said that and said, you know, the fountainhead and it's radiating out from there, and immediately you could feel it. So love this thing. Great. So go see how big it is. When they start this way, they often end up being a lot bigger than you think at first.
Okay.
Okay, so go a little bit further into the quietness, get the distinction between the energy and the quietness even more clear. Then go really deep into the quietness, quite far away from the energy field. And allow yourself to notice the vastness, limitlessness of the pure awareness.
I have a question, Tom. I feel like there's like resistance a little bit.
Uh-huh.
And so is it normal to like for something else going on that you would want to resist going to the quietness?
What a perfect candidate for this demonstration. There's another use of the out technique that's for helping with this issue of resisting change. Okay? That's what's happening is you're resisting a change because you're very identified with thinking of yourself as this low self-worth person who can't get it together. Okay? And you're sort of locked into that. Talk about attachment. Okay, that's you're sort of locked into that. And there's a part of you that if you were to change this, you would actually be uncomfortable because it would feel like you're losing a part of the sense of who you are. Because this has been self-defining. Okay? So in the fields of psychology and coaching, most people don't know how to overcome the resistance to change. Typically, the whatever kind of practitioner is, they'll just say, well, when you're ready to change, let me know and we'll come back, we'll work on it. Not going to happen. What we have to do is we have to know what the nature of resistance to change is. And it's exactly what you said. It's attachment and identification. It's like you're identified with being a person who feels a certain way. And if you were to change that, you're not sure who you would be anymore. Amazing, huh?
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. And so it turns out that that energy of the resistance to change, the energy of the fear of losing part of the self, your self-definition, okay? We want to create a state of being in which self-definition is a non-issue. There's no need for definition because you are the totality. That's the truth of what you are. Right? And so we want to be in that state, at least to the extent that we can do it, now, which we're going to do, okay? So these out technique energies, these are almost always out technique energies, and they tend to be enormous, okay? Because they're kind of like filling up your whole reality. Okay, so these out technique energies go way out almost to the edge of the universe. It's amazing. They're just enormous. Okay, so when you go out, don't don't get in a spaceship and travel through them. Okay, just simply notice that somewhere way out there, like right at the edge of the universe, there's a little sliver of quietness, and you're actually already there. You'd have to be, because if the energy completely consumed you, you'd be unconscious. So there's a little bit of your awareness outside of this enormous out technique energy field. And the nature of that energy field is this is the fear of losing part of your self-definition. Okay? And that causes you to not want to let it go. So go ahead and do the out technique and go all the way out, just like a beam me up, Scotty kind of thing, not taking a
Okay.
So let's go all the way out to the little sliver of quietness that's just right at the edge of the universe, and you'll find there's a quietness there. And then if you go even deeper, it'll actually be like going outside the actual physical universe. There won't be any stars or galaxies or anything. Just be pure quietness, like unmanifest awareness. And go really deep into that, quite far away from the edge of this huge energy cloud. We call this kind of energy cloud, by the way, we call it a gatekeeper. It's like an armed guard standing at the door, won't let you in, because it knows if you go in and change the sense of who you are, doesn't want to allow that. So now, if you look back at the energy cloud of the gatekeeper, of this fear of losing part of the sense of yourself, what's happening to it?
It's lessening.
There we go.
Yeah, I was able to.
Yeah.
That's pretty trippy.
It is trippy.
It's a trippy feeling to get out into that energy space of nothing.
Yeah, it's like what you are, your awareness is in fact infinite. And you just experienced that. It's bigger than the whole universe.
Yeah.
Very trippy.
Yeah. It's like to go there. I wish you could just hang on to that forever, but I don't know if you'd be grounded or.
Well, I'll tell you what you're doing with the freedom practice is you're nibbling away at the garbage that's in the way of being able to maintain that. Because when you integrate that experience into your daily life and it's always present, that's a life worth living.
Yeah.
Because you're always your higher self. You're always functioning from that. And you just live your life as the totality of everything. I had this shift happen for me in the middle of July of 1997. I had discovered the IN technique, as part of my recovery from the PTSD and everything. And I'd used it maybe a couple dozen times. First time I used it, there were layers to it. I was in a marriage that wasn't working, and my wife had done something to hurt me, make me angry. I had anger, so I did the in technique on that. Then I had hurt, did the in technique on that. Then I had sadness, in technique, loneliness. Finally got through that. Finally got to the period where it was like 4 pancake layers of in technique energies. And so I've been doing the in technique like, because I said, wow, this is incredible. There's a way out, you know. I'd been practicing meditation at that point for over 30 years. And I knew what pure awareness was. I had contacted it every day. It was very common, right? But I'd still get caught in the grip of emotions. And so when I discovered this, I thought, oh my God, there's a way out. And the way out is in. So I decided I would, every time I'd get upset, I decided I would do it. So I remembered to do it, and I'd done it, I don't know, 20 times, a couple dozen times. Got to that was in the spring of 97. Got to the middle of July, and I was doing a procedure of taking a few moments or minutes in the quietness and then reading my list of what I wanted to manifest in my life. It was actually an assignment I'd given a group of students I had remotely for an extraordinary prosperity course. So in any case, I was sitting reading my list, or about to read my list, and I went into the quietness, and I was just staying in the quietness for a little longer than usual. And all of a sudden, the sense of who I am shifted to the totality. And I just started laughing and laughing. I must have laughed for 5 minutes, which is a long time, at the huge cosmic joke that I had ever thought of myself as an isolated, limited individual. And the cool thing was, it never went away. It's been there ever since. And I can tell you, you don't have to worry about being a couch potato or something for doing that. It's like this is integrating awareness into your life. And that's what we're after, is living our life from there rather than living it as just the expression of our conditioning. Night and day.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I do feel more at peace.
yeah. So if you look back, probably the energy is already gone. I was talking for a long time. Energy is probably gone, and your notion that you're going to lose part of the sense of yourself. How's that look to you now? Doesn't make
Yeah,
doesn't-
it doesn't.
it doesn't make any sense. Not even present anymore, because you've just experienced the reality of what you truly are. Your awareness is you. That's your essential nature. There's nothing more essential to you than that. You use it to experience everything. Right? So now you're there. Now you can go back to the previous one, which was the self-worth one, where you were feeling the resistance, and finish doing our technique on that energy, because now you probably won't feel the resistance at all. Because when you let this go, you're not going to lose anything. You're just going to gain more access to your real self.
Yes.
Okay.
To go back to,
Out into the quietness and look back and see if there's any energy left. Sometimes it goes out with the gatekeeper, but look back and see if there's any energy left of that feeling of I'm not worthy enough, or if I don't make enough money, I'm not such a good person, or whatever the thought is.
I don't feel anything.
Already gone. Yeah, this
Yes.
sometimes happens when you do that. When you do the gatekeeper and it's gone, sometimes it washes the baby out with the bathwater, you know, the previous thing you were working on. So that's good.
Oh, what do you mean by gatekeeper?
Yeah, it's kind of like I have this image of, you know, it's very common with in technique energies, right? It's like you're trying to get in to do something, right? So it's like you're walking up to this castle door, and where you got to get is in the castle, right? And right at the door, there's this armored guard standing there with his axe, you know? He says, "You're not going in there."
Okay.
So that's the gatekeeper. That's kind of the playful mental.
Okay, so maybe the resistance was the gatekeeper. Maybe it was
Resistance was the gatekeeper. The
Okay.
gatekeeper is the fear of loss of sense of self.
Okay.
And he's going to say, no way you're going in there.
Well, this was great time. I learned a lot that I really get that practice of the out technique.
Yeah. So now you're starting to get everybody else. Any questions about out technique? Yes. Trish, go ahead.
I
Hey,
finally got in just now. That was remarkable. I did the out technique with her and realized mine was, I've had such moments of clarity when I'm working with clients and just tasting that awareness. And then I go into, I don't have it. And it was like my resistance is that people will make fun of me when they see my clarity,
uh-huh.
or, when I have, that I've always had this. This is why I don't, people find me, but I never announce what I do. Ever. You have to just find me. I don't have a card. and I know it's big, but I felt really, whoa, that's it.
Terrific. Well, thank you, Kim, for helping you bring it out. That's great.
Yeah.
So this is a perfect candidate for the freedom practice. Perfect. You take the feeling of the discomfort with having people see you with clarity, and you resolve your reaction that you're making up because, who knows what they feel. Right? You resolve your reaction to it, and then you can start to be yourself. Much more.
Because I know that I've had a resistance to diving in this more and more and more.
Yeah.
And that's what it is.
That's exactly it.
The
Perfect.
positive outcome I'm afraid of.
Perfect candidate for freedom practice work. Go for it.
Yes, I am. This was really good.
Good, Trish. I'm so glad you were here. This is great. Good.
Yeah.
Very good. Anyone else? Any questions about the out technique? Did you find it helpful?
Yes, this is Iris.
Yes, Iris.
And what I notice when I do the out technique, I always feel a lot of energy, and I sense a lot of energy right in front of my forehead.
Okay.
That sometimes lingers for quite a long time. Is that normal? Can you say something about that?
By lingers, do you mean lingers after you're finished?
Yeah, that it's still, I still sense it, yes.
And do you do a thorough job of challenging the usefulness and value of the story?
Probably not thorough.
So try being more thorough with that. There should be at least 3
Okay.
questions where you will get a no answer.
Yep.
Is it giving you specifically what you want? No. Is it giving you the life that you want? No. Is it like draining your life energy? Yeah. Yeah. Is it, I know. The question is it a good use of your life energy? Again, it'll be no.
Yeah.
No, no, no. And then is it now more a sense of choice or empowerment to disallow the story from being there? Okay?
Yeah, okay.
Even a little residue of the story that you're letting kind of be there, that may be the cause of this experience you're having. Try and see and let us know.
Okay, I will. Okay, thank you.
You can let us know. You can ask questions. Anything you wanted to do in the Slack group. Okay, ask the questions.
All right.
So I don't always make it every day there, but usually I try to make it every day. So if you have a question, then I can catch it and support you as quickly as possible.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, good job. Great. Okay, cool. Great. Any other questions about our technique? I think this was a good, thorough explanation and demonstration. Thank you, Kim, for that. It's good. Okay. All right. So I'm going to be creating something called an R&D team. And my introduction to coaching was when I met Thomas Leonard, who's the founder of the International Coach Federation. He created the Coach U, Coachville, huge coach training schools. He was a really good marketer. And I met him, and he hadn't had his own personal coach in about 10 years. He was looking for somebody who was 10 steps ahead of him. Well, I had 0 coach training. And when I met him and showed him what I do, he invited me to be, he wanted to hire me to be his coach. And I said, well, you know, I'm not a coach. And he said, oh, yes, you are. And so we agreed to it, and I started coaching him, which was kind of cool because now I was the coach of the coach of the coaches. And he had some remarkable experiences with my coaching. He said my first coaching session, I only made one coaching mistake, and I immediately caught it and corrected myself. And he said that that was an hour session. And he said most coaches, vast majority of them in a half-hour session, will make about 20 mistakes. And so he was actually blown away by it and just started telling everybody. And it was great because he promoted my seminars for me, and he just filled up with all these eager coaches who wanted to learn what he was getting. That was kind of a cool time. In any case, the whole concept of coaching, in fact, I've still never taken any coach training. I've only given them. So it's not what you know, it's not the techniques that you know that are important. What's important is who you're being. And I had that discussion with Thomas, and we both agreed that great coaching comes from great people. And so the structure of this class, this extraordinary coaching class, the purpose of it is to make you a great person. It's vastly more important than any ICF core competency skills. Get that? Yeah, because when you're coaching from pure awareness, then pure awareness is doing the coaching, and it's infinite. Okay, cool. So I'm sure there are other topics we could come up with, but we've been at this for a couple of hours, and I think we'll probably call it a day. And we'll do this again as needed. If you feel there's some things that you'd like to actually be able to get online and have a discussion for, I think it's great. We had quite a few people here for most of the call, and we don't have to make them this long in future. We can do them for shorter periods if we like. In any case, thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you got a lot out of this.
Oh, wait, Tom, I just want to say what, so you're saying this, you're doing an experiment. So what's the experiment? I missed something, or? You were just talking about, you were talking to your friend and you're doing some type of.
R&D team.
Yeah,
Oh,
R&D team. What's the R&D team?
What Thomas did is he had this, what he called his R&D team. And when he was working on something new, he would call people together like we're doing here, and he would talk about it and get feedback and get ideas. Okay? And it was like a, what do you call it? Mind what? Anyway.
Research and development.
Yeah, it's just like a
Mastermind?
sort of like that. Yeah, just a discussion, like a brainstorming. That's the word. Like a brainstorming, right?
Okay.
You get input from everybody, and then the benefit to the people who participate, that if they suggest something and gets into the training, oh, I suggested. It's like, it's not like a compensation thing. This is just a way to have everybody be able to collaborate and help out with the development of new things. So I'm probably going to initiate that soon, and you may want to join it and be involved in that. Okay, cool. So
Okay.
have a wonderful rest of your Sunday, and
Yeah.
we'll see you again soon, I'm sure. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.